Is what you or another are doing enabling drug or alcohol abuse? Well, we're going to find out the two vital certainties a parent or friend must know and do to save their kids or a friend's life from drug or alcohol abuse. And the second thing we're going to do, does loving an addict work while they're using drugs or alcohol? We need to find out. My name's Anthony, recovery coach, professional, and I'm here with Bobby Newman, outstanding interventionist. I have actually something Bobby may not remember. I met your dad, and he was giving me some tips about how he was doing interventions. So interventions run in the family, and you have a credible story about how when your dad got you into rehab, he ended up getting off the booze after I don't know how many decades. So there's just an incredible, beautiful family dynamic there, Bobby. Anyway, it's great to see you again, buddy. Yeah. So tell me some stuff. What's happening?
I've just been rocking and rolling here. I've moved all over the country. We obviously keep track of each other via social media, but I'm just still out there in the trenches trying to help as many people as I can. So
That's beautiful. I was just curious about something, and I'm sure the audience is too. Um, why why are you doing interventions while you could be spending time with your loving family or just going for big income business? I mean, why are you still doing interventions, man?
well, the biggest reason is because there's a lot of people out there that could be doing interventions that are capable, and they're not. I happen to be very good at it. I happen to have a knack for it. I've saved a lot of lives. I know many people would be dead now if it weren't for me uh, doing what I do. But the unfortunate part about it is there's a lot of people out there that are, although they're capable, that they're just not doing it. So
Well,
uh,
I tell you, that's a big deal. There's there's a couple of things that I know, and I want to quote. This is not a Mark Twain quote, by the way. This is an anonymous quote, but it'll ring true for anyone in the Midwest, in the South, and hopefully in Canada too, where I am from. A, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And my gosh, parents and friends and even drug abuse and alcohol abusers, that is the exact mechanism that keeps them using or keeps them basically enabling their kids or their friends to continue using, but they don't even know it because they think that's the right thing to do. Have you seen that in parents or people you're working with?
it's almost a constant. I mean, one of the first things I do when I go to work with a family is to find out who the enabler is, who's contributing to the addiction. And the truth is an addict, once they become a full-blown addict, rarely has the ability to survive on their own. They have to depend on someone to prop them up, and it kind of evolves over time to where the person gets kind of rolled into a trap of, well, I just want to help them, and they end up, oh, I'm just going to help them get a car, I'm going to help them get a job, I'm going to help them get an apartment. And then it's like, oh, now they're paying their bills, and they stop doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing, and you get wrapped up into this thing, and it becomes and it becomes there's actually some codependency is a big problem, and I actually just put out a blog on that on my website a couple of weeks ago, because I had a client call me, and whose son we got into rehab, and the brother went and picked him up. Him and the brother were very close, and the guy went and picked him up after a week of being there, and the guy went into an
No,
alcoholic binge and
no,
in a
yeah,
coma for 2 years. So
yeah, yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, it's brutal for me I've seen it. It's like, addict gives a mom a call who's the enabler, or the brother or the father, whoever the enabler is, and says, "Oh man, they're not treating me right. There's people doing drugs here. You got to get me out of here." And it's like,
yeah, yeah,
and they do, and you go, "Oh, you know."
yeah.
So let's get right into this. First big
Okay.
question: What are what are the two vital certainties a parent or friend must know and do to save their kids or friend's life from drug or alcohol abuse? And these are the two vital certainties. They just gotta, if they're not doing this and knowing this, it ain't gonna work. So what are they, Bobby?
One is it's never too soon to do an intervention. It's always too late. I
What's
go by that. Yeah, that's one. And two is when you truly decide to do something, you've decided, and regardless of any pushback that you get from friends or family or even the addict themselves, you yourself have made up your mind you're going to do everything you can to help save this person's life. And those are the two things that I stand by. I have many others, but those are the two main ones.
Cool. Let's get into the first one. Okay, so never too soon to do an intervention. I mean, okay, so the kid, he's 18, 19, and he's in Canada. So he's already been smoking pot since who knows when, but now he's going for it, right? And he's already seeing the demons, like the psychosis is already running in. But he just promises his parents he's just gonna, I'm just gonna chill out. I'm gonna do a little bit less, and I got this under control. Um, or the parent finds out, maybe there's something else going on. But they don't want to infringe on the kids' autonomy. What do you say? What do you do?
I just tell him about myself. I did an intervention on my son when he was 14 years old, and I didn't even know he had a drug problem. I just
Dude,
knew he was 14, he was either late 14, early 15. He's 32 now. So, but I just knew he was on the path. And knowing my history as someone that's when I started, I said, I'm nipping this in the bud. I know he's on the path. I had no evidence of him using drugs at all. He was just making a lot of bad decisions. And we fortunately we were able to get him squared away, and he was able to finish high school. It turns out that he had tried drugs and alcohol 4 or 5 times, but there was no addiction problem. It was just he was just 4 or 5 times he had went out, 2 or 3 times he got drunk, a couple times he'd smoked weed, and but there was no consistent use of substances. But I did an intervention on him then because I knew he was on the path. And unfortunately, if the kid's been smoking weed and he's now, I mean, today's weed is not the same. When I hear this all the time, oh, he's just smoking weed. Well, I'm going to tell you, that's a big mistake. And so it's people always wait till some catastrophe happens before they actually, oh, now I better do something, when they've been seeing the signs all along. So, oh, he's just smoking weed, or oh, he's just doing this, or oh, he's just not going to school, or he's not he's got a bad attitude, or whatever. There's all these signs that people ignore because they think, oh, they're just growing up, or he'll grow out of it, or whatever. And that could be true, but unfortunately, what comes when you're on the path, that the path, the likelihood something bad is going to happen, and the likelihood it's going to get worse is very high. So
yeah. This is what I've also seen, Bob. Thanks for enlightening this, because I mean, we both did drug prevention education in schools, and one of the things that the kids, this was uncomfortable, especially when I started, the kids were telling me, you know, they're not doing drugs. And it's like, well, is there someone you could help, with this information, the information I just gave you that they're now certain about? They're like, I don't know, 10, 12, 14 years old. That, yeah, my mom, my dad, my parents, my older brother. And I'm
mhm,
going, geez, you know, and, that we have to accept the reality that, drugs and alcohol are very much a family institution. They're in the family. What are we
right.
going to do? And I mean, that's where I come in as a rehab consultant, or a recovery consultant or coach. Wherever a person's at, we can get better. We can move it forward. We can move it up. And they
Right.
don't need to go to rehab if they're willing to do something about it and see it from, get some help from someone else. But you know, as soon as there's this pushback and it's like, oh, get out of my life, if it's, in my opinion, the sooner you get in a professional interventionist, the better, because if you think it's going to get better, you are sadly mistaken.
Right.
I've probably coordinated 1,000 interventions, and you're one of the, genius interventionists that, has helped me. Like, what do I do? How do I do it? And, really formulate that plan. So we're going to move into the next piece of this, which is, you said making a decision. The second, certainty. You make a decision and you move forward no matter what. Now, what if it's the wrong decision, Bobby? I mean, how do you know? I mean, how do you know it's the right decision? I mean, like, is there a process a person should go through before they make, this decision that hell or high water, they're not getting off the path on, meaning, it's going to be, they're going, they're going that way. It's the burn the ships phenomena, right? So, is there something, the person should do or, with themselves, but, to get to that point of certainty? Because, once they're committed, it's kind of like you're saying, stake in the ground, that's it, and we're moving forward. That's it. So, any tips they should do to get to that place of certainty?
Well, you may hear sometimes as a family member, oh, you're overreacting. No, that's not that bad. And the truth is you can never overreact. You can only underreact. Let's say you overreact. Let's say that you overreact and you say, stop this kid who's maybe tried weed 3 times, and you want to do this thing. You want to consult the person's understanding. But unfortunately, if a person is like a full blown addict, rationality does not exist with that person's mindset, because they have developed a thing called a drug personality, or they become a different person, right?
Yeah.
So because of the drugs, it affects. There's a whole biological reason behind that. There's a whole spirit, there's a whole list of things that I'm not going to go into that cause that. But the truth is that you know you overreact and you stop the person, and they straighten up and they get, I didn't like the way mom handled that. Well, I got it. Maybe I could have handled that better, or dad handled it, but whatever, maybe I could have handled it differently. But at the end of the day, all I know is that we got the result that we needed. It's like my son is give me, and I always use my own example. I'm not telling people ever to do something that I wouldn't myself do. I wouldn't. I just don't, because I know that in my own life, I looked at it, and there was times that my son, when he was going on that path, he didn't like the way I handled it. But I'm like, I put my foot in the sand, and it was like, I mean, I drew the line in the sand, and I said, that's it. There's no, and I just know how he ended up. He's a fine, upstanding, good-looking kid. Just got married in Miami. He's drug-free. He's doing well. He's he's making money. He's doing good, but he's also volunteering a lot of his time. So I just know how it ended up. So yeah, maybe I overreacted, but okay, I got the result. And because there was no doubt in my mind about what I expected and I demanded and I wanted. And for my, when I went through rehab years ago, I made a decision. My friends my friends do not do drugs and alcohol. My friends do not break the law. I don't have friends that do those things. So I'm damn sure, excuse my French, but I'm dang sure not going to have a family member that's in my immediate vicinity doing it either. So that's the decision I made a long time ago, and I'm sticking to it. So that's when I decided, like, you were firm in your decisions. And if you have doubts about, I've had to go and get coaching on dealing with my loved one.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
so I was like, knowing that, because your emotions get involved and you don't think rationally when you're involved, emotional. So I had to get somebody that I could lean on to help guide me through it. And I do this for a living with other people. So,
Yeah, that is a
going on about this, but I know we have a limited time.
yeah,
So,
well, you're hitting on some just things that are just pinging, so well in my
yeah,
mind, because when one is moving forward in an emotional situation, you have blind spots. I have blind spots, and I tell this to parents and family. If I had a loved one who had a drug or alcohol problem, I tell you what I would do. I would get it over to someone else to do the full handling on. I might initiate a handling, but it would be them who did it, because I'm too emotionally connected. I
right.
got my own familial blind spots. It's like, who don't I want, as a person who's going to dig in to my another loved one's personal life about drugs and alcohol, because we know there's that third, area that's going to come in if drugs and alcohol are involved, and it's called sex. So now we're in the uncomfortable position of
Yeah.
talking about, so with the
Right.
loved one, it's like you just don't want to go there with someone who's close to you. It'd be better to have, oddly enough, not a stranger, but another person, a third party who just doesn't give a damn. They don't care.
I I call it the dirty laundry. I mean, and that's one of the
Yeah.
things I do when I prepare families is I prepare for the dirty laundry to come out, because the person's going to react. Well, sometimes they could react negatively, and it's highly likely, and they're going to say who knows what. And you know what? The truth is, I don't care. I'm not here. I don't care. I'm not here for that. I'm here to help this person and help you guys. So I call it the dirty laundry effect.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's coming. It's just like, be prepared. You're gonna get called out,
Yeah,
from the time when you were six, where they
yeah,
were six, and you took the bicycle away or were smoking a joint when you were doing it, and they're gonna call you out on it, right? And it's kind of like, oh damn, that's gonna be, well, what's worth it? Your embarrassment or their recovery in their life for the future?
yeah.
You got to make a choice. So I understand, and the people I've worked with, I they know I care deeply, or I wouldn't be doing this. And and anyone who's worked with you, Bobby, you really care, but you don't, you're not concerned with all these details. It's like, I don't care, you know. So you put on a dress, and you did heroin, and you OD'd, and your picture was in the paper. I don't care. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care. You know.
Yeah, it's the building's on fire. We got to get out.
Yeah. Bingo.
We'll tell stories later.
Yeah, exactly. We'll dress code and the rest of it we'll take up at another time. So
Exactly.
so let's move this thing along. Okay. Important question for you. This comes up a lot. Um, 12 steps. Used to be, in 12 step, they talked about when a person was recovered. Apparently, no one's recovering anymore. They're in the process of recovery. It's still recovering. So I wanted this is your point of view, and just a thing in general. Can an addict or an alcoholic who has been an addict ever stop being an addict or an alcoholic, or is addicted or alcoholic in it for life? Can I get a yes or a no on that from you?
Me personally, I am, I was an addict,
Mhm.
and now I'm not an addict. And people could say I'm in recovery, but I'm not going to argue with people about it. I just know for me, that's where I'm at with it. I didn't feel like that when I was addicted. Now I have friends that have used the 12-step program and they are in recovery, and that's what they do to achieve sobriety. So I don't, I'm like, okay, whatever works for you, that's what but for me, I'm just like, I knew when I was done, and I got tested immediately. Like, I got it tested immediately as soon as I walked out of the rehab center, inadvertently, probably 3 or 4 times within 24 hours. And and I could go into that whole story, but that's what I tell everybody when they go to rehab. You're going to get tested when you come out. So
Immediately, sometimes, usually within the first day. This is the
yeah,
truth. Yeah.
immediately. Yeah, and it was, for me, it was immediately, and it was all intermittently, like just accidental. And I go into it, and but I knew I was done. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be that anymore. I'm done. I don't. But some people, they feel like they have to. There were certain things that I did and did not do when I was first got out of rehab, and for years. Now I kind of just go out and live my life. I live my life, and but I also use tools that I'm continually improving myself constantly.
Yeah.
You know,
So yeah. So
anyway,
the idea that an individual, because a person is improving their own personal life, learning more, doing more, being better, becoming better, continuing, as they say in the 12 steps, to do, a continuing inventory and correcting it as they go along.
right.
Well, does that mean they're in recovery, or does that mean they're advancing up? What I use a term called evolving. You're kind of, I want people to evolve up. And addiction and alcoholism, my opinion, is a low condition. It's not a good condition to stay in. And I do understand why people want to hang on to that memory, because
Mm-hmm.
they're afraid of doing it again, or thinking that, they could go back to drugs and alcohol, which is it's kind of an opportunity for another conversation, which we'll get into hopefully that, next time we talk. But
Yeah.
and that is when an individual or anybody, goes into drugs and alcohol, they get out of it. It's like, what's next? And it's an important question. And it's a very personal question for everybody, what's next. But we'll take care of that another time. We're talking about interventions right now. So here's another one. Here's another question for you. Is the solution always rehab or nothing for a social user experiencing some problems with life or drugs and alcohol? Or could there be some other answer? So rehab or not. So you find out, maybe your son or someone's, drinking a little bit or too much. Is it always rehab or nothing? Like, is it black or white? Or is there gray area where, you could do something creative or different? What do you think?
Well, I had a guy ask me this years ago when I was actually in Hawaii, and he was a military guy, and he was very family and career oriented, and for that matter, pretty responsible. But he used to drink on the weekends. He would cook, have gatherings over at his house, and one of the parents would stay sober because they had a young girl, but he would drink, and he pretty drunk one night. And he asked me, he said, "Do you think I have an alcohol problem?" And I said, well, a pretty quick way to answer that question is if you put your career and your family and everything that matters in this hand, and you put alcohol in the other, which one is you're going to pick? Now, if you pick the alcohol, then it's obviously you got a problem. But unfortunately, people cross that gray line, the line there, and before they realize it. But I knew the answer to his question before, or I knew how he would answer just by all the things that he was doing in his life. I don't think that there was any way he would ever jeopardize his family and his career for alcohol. I think he would, or even his health or whatever. But unfortunately, if you have things that are, me personally, if I have things that are happening to me, I mean, have nothing to do with alcohol or drugs. I'm talking about like just things, like maybe a traffic ticket. Every once in a while I have unfortunately I have this thing about driving fast and I get tickets. I don't get a lot of tickets. I get a few tickets every few years, but I always have to take a look and go, look, all right, what can I do to change this? Because it's now I got to pay the money. I got to hear it from my wife. She's going to be like, there's a whole slew of things going to happen as a result of me making a bad decision at that moment. And so I have to take a look and I have to adjust. And and when I stop making those adjustments for those little non-optimum situations that happen, then I will, that's when I need to seek further help and seek whatever help is required. And then I go back to my mantra of you can never overreact in a situation like that. Whatever it takes to handle the situation is what is the key. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it was good. It was a Bobby Newman answer. I love it.
I tell a funny story right from my house. I'm going to tell this story real quick.
Sure.
From my house, I turn and I have to go to this major highway to get into downtown Kansas City. And there's a railroad track between me and the highway, right? So I drive, it's about a mile from my house. I go up about literally like a quarter of, just a few hundred yards. I turn right and I go down about a mile. And there's these people, they're working on the railroad tracks. And I'm like, I knew they're going to be there for a while. So now I got to turn around and I got to go drive about 3 or 4 miles out of my way. And I'm mad. I'm like, what? I roll down my window. I'm going to like give it to the guy, that worker there. Go, why did you put up any signs? And then I thought for a second, I thought, wait a minute, I better look. Maybe, I better look and see. So I roll the window back up so there was not only one sign between me where I got turned on the road, there was four great big signs like like 7 or 8 feet wide by 4 foot tall saying road closed at railroad crossing. And I'm thinking to myself, I need to pay better attention.
That's funny.
There was not just one, there was 4 signs. And I'm like, you got to pay attention to the signs, you got to be paying attention. You got to adjust. So
there's a great metaphor and analogy. That's really good. So on that point, when is it time for an intervention?
An intervention can come in all forms. I mean, there's
Oh,
an
oh,
intervention.
let me ask again, so make sure I know that you're asking or answering the question I'm asking. When is it time for an intervention?
Well, as soon as you see something that's not non-optimum, that you completely disagree with, I would say that.
Oh, well, that's a whole different story. So,
Yeah.
this whole idea about reasonable and, it's their life, not mine. I totally disagree with the fact that, and you fill in all the blanks. But and because I can't do anything about it, which is the common refrain for an individual. And I go, that is so untrue. So now I'm talking, like, I want to let the audience know I'm now talking to the professional. He does this for a living. I've coordinated 1,000 interventions, so that's fine. And I know for myself, but the intervention is just telling you, okay, that you can influence another's life. Factually, you don't know how to do it.
Right.
Okay. So, Bobby, give us a couple of things that you know and do that make an intervention work while the parent um, is messing around for years or decades and just messing it up and not doing, they want to help or they're too involved or they're trying to control every action of their kid's life. So, a couple of things that you do that make the difference. And when you teach it to the parent, it just makes all the difference in the world.
When as you're talking, like if a parent were to call me and go, "Hey, I got a situation and I'd like some help or some guidance or some advice," I would say, "Look, the thing of it is you have to set your boundaries and you have to maintain your position. You cannot be reasonable. You have to be consistent." And I give an example of my 13-year-old son with who's his mother is doing much better, but as he's been growing up in his life, he would, give her, the what for when she would want him to do something. And to me, I'd just look at him and say his name real sternly, and he's going to snap too because he knows that he's going to get about one, maybe two more chances before there's going to be a non-optimum situation happen for him that he's not going to want to experience. And it's like, but I don't have to get on him because I can just say, "Hey, man," and then I'll sit and talk to him because he knows it's a consistent message of this is who we are as a family. This is what we expect. And this is what we want. This is who we are. And if you let that creep into where now the person is doing this, and then they're doing that, then they're going to just continually get worse. So I don't know. I might have gotten a little bit off track on your answering your question, but
It was
the
perfect. It's perfect. Continue, please.
so
You're
have
just
to address
bouncing.
it
Yeah.
matter of factly. And if the person, if you want to consult the person's understanding, you want to sit down and talk to them and say, "Look, but you've got to be very stern in your message. Like you want to be loving, but at the same time, you want to maintain your position. Like this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and there is nothing else. And you don't necessarily have to be mean about it, but you don't reward negative bad behavior by continuing to do the same thing. You reward good things and you penalize bad things.
That's
if
it.
you if, if you reward good things or bad things, then you're going to get more bad things. So and
And vice
ignoring
and Go
it,
ahead.
does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and vice versa. If you reward good things, expect more good things.
That's
So,
right.
be aware of what you're rewarding is my strongest piece of advice to parents. Because when you reward it, you will get more of it. So if you want to reward, their freedom and their, laissez-faire attitude about, doing whatever and, not having any responsibility,
Yeah.
by covering their butt, by, taking care of where they dropped the ball, you're going to get more of that, right?
That's right.
You'll get more. So, people are habitually trained by the cues that we give them, right? It's kind of like, if you're talking to me about, you wouldn't be doing it, but if someone was talking to me about the time they got drunk, wasted, hit on all these women and, got lucky and didn't even know her name and, blew her off. And, and I just stood there, smiled and nodded my head. What message is that giving the other person? That it's
Right.
completely okay, that they should do more of it, that I might even be wanting to do it, where that's completely not the case. And so these little things make a big difference. And the idea that the family unit is a real thing, and that unit is composed of attitudes, ideals, values. And if you're part of the Newman family or my family, this is what we expect. This is how we roll, baby.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
you're not representing just you out there, my friend, my young son, my young daughter. You are representing me every time you go out, whether you like it or not, right? Because you are my son or daughter or nephew or niece. And
That's right.
yeah, so don't try to hide, just lean into it. It's like there's strength in the family. Lean into it, right?
Yeah. Well, that actually that's 100% correct. And I look around to people, even I've been to a lot of conferences where leadership conferences and entrepreneur business conferences and all the successful people, they will tell you, you find a mentor, you find somebody who has done the things that you want to do and successfully and are good ethical people, and you emulate and you learn as much as you can from that person. So you find somebody who's done it and you're around that person. And the truth is anybody, particularly something of this nature with addiction, if you're not seeking help for that, you're sinking your own ship. And because even like I the Alabama football team, I don't know if most of your public or your audience is in Canada or not, but there's a football team in United States, Alabama, and it's a university, and they're very successful. And there's a motivational coach for that team, and he was on one of the podcasts I was listening to one time, and he said, and the guy interviewer for the podcast said, "How many coaches do you have?" He said, "I have two coaches." He's the motivational coach for the Alabama football team. He said, "I have two coaches. I have one for this and I have one for that. And if I was going to try to do this, I'd go find somebody that knew how to do that." So it's like, you have to have someone that is going to help push you and keep you in bounds and help you to achieve your goals. I've had people help me with my son. I've had people help me with my marriage a couple of years ago. Was not a couple of years ago, but we needed some help. I mean, a marriage is a continually evolving piece of work. You have to work at it. So we needed some help. We go and get some help, and we work through some stuff, and it's going on 17 years now. So and there's no chance. I don't think it'll ever be. It's not going to be 30 years or however long we live. But so my point is always seek help. There's no shame in it. And people sometimes with addiction, they want to, oh, I'm embarrassed. Well, you know what? You let that embarrassment and your feelings get in the way of you saving your son's life, then you have nobody to blame, but if something happens to them, but yourself. So.
Yeah, because the help is there. I think the message that you've made really clear, Bobby, is that there are experts who know their area so well and beyond their area so well that they can guide a very confused situation that seems like completely out of like if I'm talking to a parent or a person who's using drugs or alcohol, it's completely out of your ballpark, man. It's like there's no way you could handle it. It's like, and that's an every day of the life for me, when talking about drinking or coming off drinking or dealing with what apparently look like very complex situations. I've been clean and sober, completely clean for 40 years. I've been completely sober and clean, completely straight edge, nothing for over 17 years. I've learned a few things along the way, really, and I've been a professional in the field for 22 years. Bobby, how long have you been a pro, in the rehab field?
It's been over 20. I went through rehab 23 years ago and immediately got involved. I would say probably 21 years or so. I've been, helping families and drug, through various means. So
yeah, so it's 20 years. It's like, guess what? We learned something in this time. We learned a lot, and we can help anybody, believe it or not, like anybody. It's just I really request and I recommend sooner is better. If you're thinking about it, please call us now. Like, really, I'm laughing, but it's like, please call us now. Don't wait till there's, the life intervenes with the hospital or the police or the drug dealer at your house or the gunshot wound, or just now is good, right? You're thinking about it, now is good. So Bobby, how can people get in touch with you? I will be adding links, so don't worry. Go in, like if you're watching this and loving it, go into the info box, and we'll have links for Bobby, but tell the audience how they can find you and so on.
They can call our hotline at 866-989-4499, or they can go to my website at newmaninterventions.com. That's www.newmaninterventions.com. And that's interventions with an S on the end. So newmaninterventions.com.
Beautiful. Okay, so you got the phone number, and I will get that, on the link. It's been a great conversation, Bob. It's awesome to see, old friends,
Yeah.
and and we got to talk about new things, which is awesome, because the longer we talk, eventually, the stories will come up. But what's really interesting, I think, right now are the new stories we're making, and from what we're doing now is really more interesting. Although I have to admit, we had a very interesting, the projects we got involved in were awesome, but we're not doing those now. We're helping you guys. So thanks a bunch. I'm going to call it an interview. Thank you so much, Mr. Bobby Newman, pro interventionist.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been great.